Delighted to say we've now been joined by Sam Smith just to discuss yesterday and look ahead to today. But first of all, yesterday, Sam, what a day we saw on centre court. And I know all the papers, it's Murray Mania this morning, but we just said to Mats, we can't deny that first match, what they achieved out there on court, Novak and Juan Martín. I mean, such a spectacle to witness. What was your impressions from it?
I just thought it was a privilege to be there yesterday. Obviously, you know, we all work in TV, we all watch a lot of tennis, but I sat on centre court for a little while and watched bits of it, and I just really sat there as a fan. I wasn't sort of analysing any of the shots, I just sat there like that. I thought the atmosphere was absolutely amazing. I mean, it was breathtaking.
4 hours and 43 minutes, longest in history in a men's semi-final. What for the conditions out there that they were playing in? Because Murray had it better, I suppose, later in the afternoon. It had seriously cooled down. They were playing in the heat of the day. An absolutely enormous match. How do they try and get themselves through that length of time?
Well, Djokovic doesn't seem to have any problems at all. He is some sort of amazing machine, and they really did push themselves. I think in the end, I think Del Potro was feeling it. There's no doubt he was the one that was feeling it slightly more physically. I thought it was also, I know they played in maybe the slightly warmer conditions, but it wasn't really hot for a player like Djokovic, who's used to playing in Australia, and he's so incredibly well conditioned. I actually thought it was quite tough for Andy to go on when he did. I mean, I was praying as a Brit for Djokovic and Del Potro to knock each other out completely and exhaust each other. And while I was actually sitting there, I didn't know that Juan Martín's Del Potro's names mean Del Potro means of the horse. Did you know that?
No.
I did not know that. Someone told me that. Random fact from someone I was sitting next to. But anyway, I digress. But I thought it was so I thought, you know, they really did knock each other about, and I was really pleased about that. But it was tough for Andy in terms of going on. I think he went on about 6:30ish to wait all that time to go on. I know he's really good at waiting now, or for both of them. Maybe it was tougher for Jeze, but to burn up all that energy, not quite knowing, that's the tough thing in tennis. So I think for both semis it was quite tricky for totally different reasons.
Do you think that the crowd? I mean, we know Novak Djokovic now. He's a great champion, and he's had some problems. He had some problems early in his career. Do you think that the crowd is warming up to him enough where they're not all going to be against him tomorrow?
I don't think Wimbledon crowds are really ever against players, particularly former champions. I think they do like him very much. But the final will be very different to last year, because I sat out there for some of the final last year, and it was a 60-40 crowd, I felt, for Federer. And I was amazed at that, because it's not every day we get a British man in the final. I just couldn't believe it. And obviously when you had the Olympics and it was the same final, Federer-Murray, it was almost a completely Murray crowd. So tomorrow it will be has to be a pro-Murray crowd, not an anti-Djokovic crowd. Surely, I think that will make a huge difference.
I'm sure it will do, and it was such a different crowd here at the Olympics, wasn't it? But we must turn to today and the ladies' final. Amazing to see two ladies both outside of the top 10 seedings. Both of them, whoever wins, going to be a Grand Slam champion for the first time. What are your thoughts on what this is doing for women's tennis?
Well, for both of them personally, it's life-changing. This is going to change their life today. For women's tennis, I think a lot of fans have got a little bit tired of, I mean, brilliant athletes, but these very sort of tall, long, fairly sort of, you know, emotionally controlled women banging the ball at 1,000 miles an hour. And then you've got these two Wimbledon finalists. One is not an athlete and has such a wacky way of playing, which you might even see in local clubs, the way she serves. You'd see some of those down the park, that serve. And she's a Wimbledon finalist and a very fine, effective player. And then you've got another player who smiles on the tennis court. I mean, when did that start happening? That doesn't happen in all these tennis academies, does it? And then she cries, and she looks like she's enjoying it. In fact, they both look like they're enjoying it. So you've actually got it feels like you have real people out there.
Great.
And they talk about other things. Marion loves her painting and her chess, and then she does all this crazy stuff in between points, warding off evil spirits. I don't know what she's doing there. So you've got real human beings who show how they feel, and that's the best thing for women's tennis.
And they really enjoy, and they really love. This is the greatest day of their life. And I've just seen so many players in the last sort of 5-6 years where I'm not sure they really want to be in the finals because they're on display. And these two really want to be there, just like the guys.
And also, they're prepared to show who they are out there as well. I'm sure we're going to see all sorts of goings on and all sorts of things. You're going to see Sabine Lisicki's ball toss practically end up in the royal box. It gets so far back. Marion, she's actually in the players' area at the moment. She was in there at 20 minutes ago, already in her match kit, and she's sitting under a parasol talking to Amelie Mauresmo, who I think is the most, she's totally relaxed. I said, Amelie, how's it going? She's like, oh, it's fine. And that's the best thing. You know, people think, oh, what's Amelie telling her? I don't think Amelie's really telling her anything. She's just a relaxing presence. And Dad is just wandering about. Dad Walter's here, and he's not getting involved at all. He's just wandering about, chatting to everyone. But Marion's ready now.
Well, she still has to take a nap.
Yeah, she does, doesn't she?
Yeah, because she took a nap before her semi-finals.
This is obviously the nap, but I mean, this is great for us, isn't it? You know, she does really unusual things, and I like their passion. You know, I'm sure there's, you know, top players out there that love their tennis, but they're very buttoned up. They've been trained and so control everything. But I like to see the passion, and if I'm watching at home, if I was just a fan at home, I want to see a lot of passion. But if Marion Bartley wins Wimbledon today, you're going to hear the ripping of coaching manuals all over the world, aren't you?
I hope so. I hope she wins because of that reason, because I think we have to allow them to play, kids to play the way they want to play. If you play the way you want to play, you can fight with passion. But if you're taught, this is how you have to hit the ball, because that's how the Williams sisters hit it. This is how you have to hit the backhand, sometimes with an open stance. Let's practice the open stance, even though you're not late. I mean, it's crazy how we're trying to make players. And then you have Marion Bartoli, who's obviously self-made. No two-handed player on both sides has ever won Wimbledon.
That's amazing.
In the singles, men or women.
It'd be great.
But also, you know, it's interesting the decisions you make, because at 16, Marion was already a very good player. She won the juniors at the US Open, and the French Federation, who have a pretty strong production line of producing very good players. I'm not sure they have a great setup now, but they certainly in her day had a great setup, and they said no, and that's a big thing to turn down with the funding and all the help. And now I think with 2 Wimbledon finals, whether she wins or not, they're vindicated, because maybe the French would have tried to make her something that she wasn't. And Dad said, Marion, you're not an athlete. That's we know that. So I'm going to give you unbelievable hand-eye coordination, and he's done everything possible. I mean, she was throwing rugby balls around the Arangi Park yesterday and doing all manner of strange tennis practices I've never seen before.
Nice.
But she does her thing.
Quite remarkable. I've got to ask you, how do you think it's going to play out today? Because they have met here before a couple of times, but in 2011 in the quarterfinals, it was Lisicki that came out on top in 3 sets. Do you think, obviously we've seen Serena's dominance the last few years, straight sets. Do you think we've got a 3-setter in it today?
But this is the anything can happen Wimbledon Championships. It's a complete punditry nightmare. I've got everything completely wrong, so I'm not sure. I suppose nerves will come into it a lot. It took Lisicki a couple of goes to serve out for that semi-final. Both, I think, are not just happy to be here, which is important. I think Lisicki has always seen herself as a possible Wimbledon champion, and obviously Marion loves the grass and was in the final before. So neither are sort of, you know, sometimes you get a finalist and they're just like, oh, I'm in the final, and they've got nothing left. That's not the case. And they both, I get the sense they feel they genuinely believe they can win. So I think we'll have lots of breaks to serve, lots of battles. Either you might get one, try and serve it out, not close it. You could have all manner of goings on out there, but don't ask me.
That's a nice script. I like that. We'll take that script.
But I actually think Lisicki's going to win. That's my kind of, if I have any gut feeling.
Okay.
That's
well,
my
thank you so much.
Thanks for having me
on.
It's
so hard to say, isn't it? It's so hard for any of us to know what's happening this year. But Sam Smith, thank you so much for taking time out and coming to talk to us. It really is very refreshing to see these two in the Wimbledon final.